Our scripture this morning comes from Matthew 20, verses 20 through 28. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. I am hardly ever nervous about a sermon anymore. When you give them week after week after week, you stop getting kind of nervous. I'm nervous about this one. I'm nervous because it's not going to be skip, skip, clap, clap, happy, happy, joy, joy. Okay? This is the truth. And I'll remind you what the truth did to certain people. The truth hardened Pharaoh's heart. You remember Pharaoh and Moses? When Moses came to him with the truth, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and the end of Pharaoh began. Jesus came telling the truth, and what did the truth do to Jesus? It left him hanging on a cross. Truth is something hard to give, and I have some truth that I believe the Spirit of the Lord has revealed to me, but I'm nervous to tell you. I'm nervous to tell you because I don't want your hearts to be hardened, and I don't want to wind up hanging from a cross, particularly not this one. The truth of this text today has to do with two brothers and their mama. Now, let me change gears for a second with you. Sundays as a kid were awesome. Okay, my dad was the preacher. I got the communion bread when they were done. That's what I got to take home and eat and feed to the ducks. Okay? Sundays were great. And the days I didn't get the bread, I got to go home with my buddy Bobby Bruns. Okay, after church, he came to my house or I went to his house. But the way I figured out if I could go over there or not was I'd go, "Bobby, will you go ask my dad if I can go to your house?" And Bobby would go ask. And they'd say, "Okay, well, yeah, sure." It's kind of harder to tell that kid no than me, I thought. Well, then one day my dad came home and said, "I have a new rule. If anybody ever asks for you to go to their house, you're not going, just because they're the ones that asked." Well, Bobby didn't know the rule the next Sunday, and so Bobby ran up to my dad and said, "Can Chance come to my house after church?" "No." "Oh, man." It kind of seems like what's happening here. James and John are disciples of Jesus. Okay, they're following Jesus Christ, and Jesus tells them the end is near. My time on this earth is coming to an end. And so what happens when something's coming to an end? You better grab all that you can right now before it's over. Right? When the buffet's closing, you typically go and get all that you can fit on that plate. And so James and John are trying to grab all that they can. But instead of them asking Jesus, they get their mama to ask Jesus. And Mama Zebedee comes up to Jesus, and Jesus says, "What do you want?" "I want my sons to sit one at your right and one at your left in the places of glory. I want them to sit in the places of honor because they might be the best disciples you have." Do you know what you are asking? Jesus says. Can you drink from this cup of suffering that I can drink from? And James and John say, yes, we can. Or we will. And Jesus says, you will indeed. But this is not my place. I don't get to decide who sits at my right and who sits at my left. But let me tell you this, Jesus says. I am not like every other ruler you've heard of. The greatest in my kingdom are the least. The least are the greatest, and the greatest are the least. Let me tell you about what it's like to have me as a king. I did not come to be served. I came to serve. I did not come to be served. I came to serve. Many of you will recognize that line from the 1960s. John F. Kennedy took it right out of the Bible. He adapted it a little bit. I always get this backwards, so hang there with me for a second. It's not what your country, there it is, I got it right the first time. It's not what your country can do for you. It's what you can do for your country. Where do you think John F. Kennedy took that from? From Jesus Christ. I came not to be served. Yet I hear 20, 30, 40, and 50-year-olds upset that their mom and dad aren't serving them anymore. Yet I meet with 60, 70, 80, 90-year-olds who are upset that this entire world is not serving them. Yet when we go and we vote for these leaders like John F. Kennedy, we make our decisions based on what's going to serve me best. Who's going to look out for me? Who's going to serve me the best? And yet we hear this ringing of Jesus. I came not to be served, but to serve. And yet Christians, little Christs, people trying to live like Christ, you and me, we have expectations of being served. We call ourselves Christians, yet we expect to be served. Christians have taken on the mindset on the opposite of what Jesus just said. Okay, there's a clear difference. Catherine, I have your socks up here. There's a clear difference between the way James and John and Mama Zebedee are thinking and the way Jesus thinks. Okay, James, John, and Mama Zebedee are thinking, what can I get? What can I get from following Jesus Christ? And Jesus is saying, what can I give? What can I give? Are we called to be like James, John, and Mama Zebedee, or like Jesus Christ? Like Jesus Christ, right? Amen? Amen. And yet Christians have this desire to be served. What can I get from this church? There's a reason church shopping is considered the greatest evil that can happen by C.S. Lewis. One of the greatest times Satan has control of your life is when you're church shopping, because all you're doing is trying to find, what can I get from that church or this church? What can I get? We have it within us. What can I get? And Jesus says, I've come not to be served, but to serve. Do you see a difference in those two lines of thinking? Yes, I see some head nods. Good. Now let me tell you about, I got to talk to the manager of a country club this week, a former manager of a country club. And this manager of the country club told me that people came and they paid their dues, okay? And then the rest of the time they were there, they expected to be served. And when you didn't serve them, they let you know about it. When you didn't bring them their banana pudding just right, just on time, they let you know it was a problem. Church, you're not a country club. If I need to clarify that. Some of you laugh. But church, you're not a country club. Just because you tithe in that box doesn't mean we are here to serve you. That's not what we're called to be about here. We are not called to be about serving those who pay money. And yet I hear, I want a bulletin. And yet I hear, I want a choir. And yet I hear, I want this and I want that. And when you don't do this, I'm not doing that. And if you don't come here, I'm not doing this and this and this and this. I want. What can I get from you, Pastor? What can I get from you, elders? What can I get from this church? Rings true Monday through Saturday in my ears at Westlake Christian Church. From your mouths, from my mouth, in my ears, I hear it. I want, and I want. You expect to be served, church. You see why I'm a little nervous about giving this sermon? Let me tell you the truth. We expect to be served. And it's no wonder our culture laughs at us and laughs at our God. We've transformed this God who said, I'm not here to be served, but to serve. We have transformed that God into a consumer just like McDonald's, just like Burger King, just like Dairy Queen. We have transformed our God into a people-pleasing puppet. You and me have done that. Our parents have done that. Our parents' parents have done that. It is time to take control of who our God is, to reveal to this world who our God really is, and who He's called us to be. He's called us to be a people who do not serve. Oh, that's completely wrong. He's called us to be a people who do serve. He has not called us to be a people to be served. Do you understand? This text tells us that worship isn't about you. It isn't about me. Our website isn't about you. It's not about me. Our ministries, what we do in this church, isn't about you, and it's not about me. What we do as Christians, the church, is meant to be a place that goes to people like Sherry Hawsey when her grandkids die, like Mel McMullin did, and say, hey, I know a place that can offer some healing. You're meant to be a people who go out, preach, man. I've dreamed my whole life to hear that 7 I'm preaching. You are meant to be a place for the brokenhearted, for the weary, for the suffering, for the childless, and for the parentless, for the widow, the grieving widower, the individual who the world has told you are not worthy of grace or love. That is what you are meant to be, church. You're meant to be serving those people. Everything else is a waste of our time. Church, you're meant to be a people who are seen with crosses on their back. You're meant to be a people who are recognized as people who are serving. You're meant to be a people with a wash rag over your arm and a bucket of water at your feet, ready to wash other people's feet. You're meant to be a people who do things other than say, I want. You're supposed to be different. Churches are diminishing in this country because we aren't different. Churches are diminishing in this world because we're full of people who say, I want. I'm going to offer you an invitation. If you want to be a people who are done saying, I want, If you want to be a people who are done worrying about getting everything you can from the buffet line of Jesus Christ, if you're ready to be a people who are serving, if you're ready to be a people who are giving everything you have to the brokenhearted and the widows and the orphans and the people who are lost and brokenhearted, if you're ready to be a people who are about serving this world, I invite you to stand up and come to the table and participate in communion. But before you do, I want to offer you this invitation as well. If you want to be a people who say, I want, if you want to be a people who say, I expect to be served, I invite you also to stand up. And I invite you to walk out those double doors. We're a church following in the ministry of Jesus Christ. We're a people of servants. We're a church full of servants. If you're unwilling to serve, then maybe this just isn't the place for you. And that hurts to say. But we're here to serve. We're here to be about the ministry of Jesus Christ, unapologetically and unashamedly.